to chant the Maha Mantra. This became a regular practice in the home of Jagannath Mishra. Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu was known as Nimai Pandit before he took sannyas. And he would arrange to have kirtans at the home of Shuras Thakur. And they would have kirtan all night. And they would go into ecstatic moods, blissful, ecstatic moods of Krishna Prema, experiencing Krishna Prema. So the whole process to chant Hare Krishna is to purify our hearts, to purify our consciousness, because our hearts are impure. In our hearts there are narraated, unwanted things. What unwanted things are in the heart? Well, there's anger, that's in the heart. Envy is in the heart. Greed is in the heart. Lust, prejudice, and so many negative things, we don't have to talk about that. And this blocks our heart from experiencing prema. The way I look at it is like this. There's two ways of looking at it. I'll share with you both my ways of looking at it. Our heart, which contains pure divine love, naturally is now in jail, in bondage. And the bars of the jail are lust, anger, greed, envy, prejudice, kam, krodh, lila, moha, matsarya, all these things, moha, mada. And so we're bound by these bars, and we can't express pure love, and we can't receive pure love because it's like we're in jail. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that all of these negative things that are in the heart are like bricks in a wall separating us from Krishna. Every negative thought is another brick in the wall. Every negative word is another brick in the wall. Separating us from Krishna, separating us from eternal life. And the process of bhakti yoga is to dismantle that wall. And once that wall is dismantled, there is Krishna and there is us. Hare Krishna. So the process is purification. This is the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Now in India there are so many mantras. And I'm sure you know different mantras. How many people chant this mantra? Om Ganapataya Namaha. How many people chant that mantra? How many people know that mantra? That mantra is to remove all obstacles on the path. Ganesh helps to remove obstacles. But if my heart is impure, then I still haven't solved the complete problem. I've taken away, obstacles may be taken away, but I'm still got a wall separating me from Krishna. So every mantra is for a particular, specific purpose. So the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is to purify the heart and consciousness. That's what it's for. Now, if you're not interested in purifying your heart and consciousness, then don't chant this mantra. Because if you chant this mantra, you will lose all attraction to material things. You lose all lust, greed, for material opulence and everything. So don't chant this mantra if you want to maintain those things. But if you're willing to give them up and become a humble, simple, pure, loving Vaishnava, then this mantra is perfect for you. And this is what Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu preached all over India in early 1500s, which means over 500 years ago. Now in those days, who chanted mantras? Everybody didn't chant mantras. Today everybody chants mantras. In those days, everybody didn't chant mantras. The only people who could chant mantras were the temple Brahmanas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. No one else was allowed to chant mantras. So Nimai Pandit, or Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu, he had studied all the Vedas. He knew more about spiritual life than anybody else. Of course, he was an incarnation of Krishna himself, so of course he had all the power. So he was thinking this is not a very good situation in India that existed 500 years ago, that only the mantras could be chanted only by the Brahmanas. But there were more people who were not Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Shudras, the Kayastas, and all the other groups. So what can I do to give the opportunity for salvation and experiencing Krishna Prema to everybody? So, in the Kali Shantarana Upanishad, there's the Maha Mantra, and it explains that this mantra will destroy all the doshas of Kali Yuga. And that mantra is...
Call from 1-480-787-9299.
That's not the mantra.
That's why I'm laughing.
Sorry.
That mantra, I went everywhere, in every library I could find, because I can read Devanagari. I even went to the British Museum Library, down 4 stories underground, to find the old Shastras that they had brought back from India 500 years ago, 300-400 years ago. And I looked at the Kali Shantara Upanishad, and every single one I found, even in our ISKCON library in Calcutta. And the mantra is Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu turned it around, put the Krishnas first, the Ramas second. Then he added melody, raga. And for the different times of the day, you would sing the different ragas. And he added rhythm, tal. And then he said, now it's different. Now it's for everybody. And so he would invite everybody to come to chant and sing this Maha Mantra. Now the Brahmanas, they didn't like this. Who is this upstart Nimai Pandit? So at that time in Navadvip, all of India, in fact, was it was the occupation of the Muslims. So they were running everything, controlling everything. So in Navadvip, Kazi was the magistrate. So the Brahmanas approached Kazi. They wanted to stop the fact that everybody could chant the mantra. So they came up with a strategy. Now Kazi was a very devoted Muslim, and he was a magistrate. So they came with a 2-point program. The first point was this, that you are a great devotee of God. You're following Shastra and Dharma 100%. But this upstart Nimai Pandit, he is destroying Dharma by taking these sacred mantras, which are only to be chanted in the precincts of the sacred temples, and he is distributing it to everybody without any consideration of caste, creed, or education. And this is defining Dharma. That was their first point. Their second point was, that now these low-class people, they will start thinking that they're on the same level as us, and they'll want their freedom, and this is going to cause a disturbance in the community. You better squash this now, nip it in the bud. So these were the 2 points that the Brahmanas presented to stop Nimai from spreading this chanting. So the Muslim magistrate, Chand Kazi, he said, yes, well, we can't have Dharma destroyed. We must uphold Dharma. And being a magistrate, he didn't want a disturbance in the community. That's the last thing a magistrate wants. So he said, do not worry. I'll take care of this. I will do the needful. So what happened was every night, Mahaprabhu was doing these kirtans with everybody, inviting everybody, and everyone was feeling bliss. Everyone was feeling ecstatic. And then all of a sudden, one evening, officers of the law come, stop the kirtan, take the claim of Gangas, smash them on the ground and said, this is against the law. Because he had issued an ordinance that kirtan was illegal in the precincts of Navadvip. So they said, we're giving you a warning now, but if you do this again, you're in the jail. And they left. And all the people were, oh, can you imagine? They were feeling some ecstasy for the first time, and now again they were being threatened. You do this again, you're in jail. So they were feeling downtrodden, completely in lamentation. But Nimai Pandit said, please do not worry. We will not obey this new ordinance, this new injunction, this new law. I want every one of you to go home and tell your family members, your friends, your relatives, and your neighbors to come to my home tomorrow evening before sunset. And we'll have a Maha Kirtan in defiance of this new law. This was the first civil disobedience movement in India, 400 years before Gandhi. In fact, Gandhi got his idea for civil disobedience from Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu. So next day, everybody came and they were excited. Civil disobedience, yes! We're going to defy the police. We're not going to follow this law. So there was hundreds of madangas and cartels. People were blowing conch shells, they had flags, and everyone was fired up. So Mahaprabhu started the kirtan. And then Nityananda had a great idea. He said, look, why just chant here? Why don't we take this kirtan through the town, let everybody know what's going on. We'll go right to the Kazi's house. We're not going to play footsie here. We're going to be realistic, you know. And let them know we don't accept this new ordinance. Great idea, let's do it. So they began what's known as Nagar Kirtan, the first Nagar Kirtan, going out in the streets through the town, Nagar, through the city, streets, on their way to the home of the Kazi. So let him know civil disobedience, we're not accepting this. So meanwhile, at the Kazi's home, the sun is going down, it's the end of the day, he's finished his duties. He's about to take his bath. The cook is preparing his evening meal. He can smell it, he's getting hungry. All of a sudden his servant runs in. There's a disturbance in town. Oh, what is it? It's Nimai Pandit. He's defying your ordinance of kirtan, banned. And he's got thousands of people with him, and they're all chanting Hare Krishna, and they're coming this way. Kazi was terrified. He looked out his window. He saw all these people with cartels chanting and dancing, full of enthusiasm. He ran upstairs in his room and locked the door.
What?
But Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu, he's a saintly person. Nimai Pandit in those days. He's a saintly person. Doesn't mean any harm. So about 25 to 30 meters before the home, he stops, stops the kirtan, and he says to Nityananda Prabhu, you go knock on his door, and you explain to the Kazi we would like to discuss his new ordinance based on Shastra, to see if it's in line with Shastra. And we can base it on whatever Shastra he's interested in. So Nityananda knocked on the door very politely and invited the Kazi for a discussion about his new ordinance, whether or not this was following Dharma. You're a very dharmic person. Does this new ordinance follow Dharma? And according to whatever Shastra you want. Well, then let's discuss according to Quran, he said. So we sat on the veranda, and Nimai came, and they sat together. And Nimai referred to him as uncle. You're my uncle. And Kazi said, yes, you're my nephew. It was very warm and affectionate. And then Nimai, within 15 or 20 minutes, he quoted all the shlokas, the Arabic shlokas from the Quran, showing how this was totally against Dharma, because in the Quran there are verses that say that everyone should gather together, raise their arms, and with loud voices and drums and cymbals glorify the names of God. It's right there in the Quran. It's also there in the Bible, in the Psalms of David. So after 15, 20 minutes or so, the Kazi was completely defeated. He said, well, you're right. And then Mahaprabhu quoted all the Shastras, the Sanskrit shlokas from the Vedic Shastras. So then the Kazi he was a magistrate, so he had a sense of right and wrong and righteousness and Dharma. So he admitted, he said, yes, you're right. Perhaps I made a mistake. I was influenced wrongly by these Brahmanas. But I tell you now, Nimai, that from now on, as long as either I or any of my descendants are in control and in charge of Navadvip Dham, that this kirtan will go on unimpeded. That was his promise. And to this day, kirtan goes on unimpeded in Navadvip. And especially at this time of the year, Falgun, this is the month of Falgun, and Gaur Purnima falls on the Purnima day. This year it's March 5th. And so many kirtan groups come from all over the world, and they do Nagar Kirtan. And they go to this one particular place where there is the shrine, the tomb of Chand Kazi, where he was entombed, buried, because that's the Muslim way. They don't burn them bodies. And they do kirtan around this tomb and then back through the town. And in this way, kirtan was now spread in Navadvip and was meant for every person, man, woman, child of any caste, creed, or consciousness. So then Nityananda, subsequently, he said to Mahaprabhu, you know, you did fantastic. Now you spread kirtan all over Bengal, because what happened was that throughout Bengal, people were saying, did you hear what's going on in Navadvip? No, what? Oh, this is kirtan, everyone's doing it, everyone's dancing, everyone's in ecstatic bliss. So musicians and people would come from all different parts of Bengal to Navadvip to experience this and then go back to their own towns and villages and turn on this Maha Mantra to everybody. So after that had happened, Nityananda came to Mahaprabhu and said, you've done a fantastic job, you've spread it all over Bengal. Now you have to spread it all over India. All over Bharat. And Bharat in those days was much bigger than today. What we know as Pakistan was part of Bharat. What we know as Bangladesh was part of Bharat. What we called Burma was Brahmadesh, was part of Bharat. What we call today Thailand, or was previously called Siam, was Shamdesh, was part of Bharat. Cambodia was part of Bharat. Even Afghanistan was part of Bharat. You know, the Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra, she was from Kandahar in Afghanistan. So Bharat was a huge country, bigger than the US. And it was the British that chopped it up and divided it and brought it to its small size that it is today, out of envy. Anyway, we're not going to go there on this lecture. So, spread it all over Bharat. Nityananda said to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu said, "No, I don't think that's possible. For you it's possible." And Nimai said, "But I'm just a grihasta. No one will pay attention to a grihasta. You know. Okay, here in Bengal I'm known, I'm a pandit, people recognize me, but the rest of India nobody knows me, they will not pay any attention." So then Nityananda said, "Well, then why don't you take sannyas? Because all over India, all over Bharat, if you wear Gerua Kapur, if you wear the kapra of the saffron color, then automatically people will give you respect. Doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter what you preach, it can be completely bogus, but as long as you're wearing saffron, they will honor you and respect you." And it's the same today in India. No matter what bogus philosophy you have, if you put on saffron, you get respect. So Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit thought about that. And eventually he agreed to that because his mission was to spread the Yuga Dharma, chanting of the divine names of Krishna all over the world. So he agreed to that, and at age 24, in the month of Magh, in the year 1510, he took sannyas, Maghi Purnima. And subsequently he traveled all over India for the next 6 years, introducing this kirtan style of chanting mantras, singing with instruments, singing ragas and rhythm, tal and rag. And it was embraced by everyone. And that's why everybody in India does kirtan nowadays. So that's the history of how kirtan started in India. But then he made a prophecy. Priti vite jata ache nagara digram shabata prachar hoibe mornam. That the holy names will be chanted in every town, in every village, all over the world, the entire planet. Well, 100 years went by, only in India. 200 years went by, only in India. 300 years went by, 400 years went by, nobody knew kirtan except in India. So many people began to think, well, what is the meaning of that prophecy, Priti Vite? Maybe the rest of the world doesn't count. Maybe only India is Priti Vite. But there was one man, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and he was thinking, Lord Chaitanya is incarnation of Krishna, he's God. And if he says it will spread in every town and village, then it must be. That means that there must be people in these other countries waiting for someone to come to deliver it so they can accept it. Prabhupada was thinking like that. He was not thinking like everyone else. The rest of the world doesn't count, and India we spread it all over India, that's the rest of the world. Everything else is Mlechadesh, we don't care about them. No one will cross the ocean to those places. So Prabhupada tried for a long time to come, but it was very difficult. Just to get a passport was a struggle. And then he was invited by the Japanese to come for a big congress and spiritual conference. And he wrote a beautiful piece, Light of the Bhagavat, to present at that conference. But he couldn't get anyone to sponsor him. He couldn't, it was a struggle. He couldn't leave the country. But he didn't give up. For years he tried, until finally he approached one very pious Gujarati lady who was the owner of the Scindia Steamship Company, a cargo ship company. It would send cargo from India to around the world. And her name was Sumati Morarji, and she was a great devotee of Krishna. So Prabhupada would go to see her, glorify her devotion to Krishna and say that this is the prophecy, we have to take this Krishna Katha, this Krishna Bhavnamrita around the world. Please, give me passage on your steamship. Now by this time Prabhupada was quite old. He was 69 years old, well 68 when he approached her. She says, Swamiji, you're living in Vrindavan. You're 68 years old. Why do you want to leave to go to these other countries? If something, God forbid, happens, and you get sick, or, no, you better stay in Vrindavan. You're guaranteed to go back to Krishna. Why take such a risk? No, I must do it. It was the order of my Guru Maharaj. Prabhupada said it was the order of his Guru Maharaj, but actually, it was only a suggestion on their first meeting in 1922. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur noted that Abhay Charan Dey was his name at that time. He was a young married man, and he was 26 years old, wife and children, 1922. And he was wearing khadi. He was a member of the Gandhi, he was a follower of Gandhiji. So as soon as he came for the first darshan, Bhaktisiddhanta immediately understood everything about him. The way he came, sat down, you could see he was educated and aristocratic. And therefore he was educated in British schools, which meant he spoke English, and he was wearing khadi, which means he was a follower of Gandhi. So just by seeing him, he knew everything about him. So before Prabhupada could even say a word, he had come with his friend, Narendranath Malik, and they were both wearing khadi. So he looked at Prabhupada and he said, you are an educated young man. Why don't you spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya MahaPrabhu to the English-speaking countries? He made a suggestion like that. He asked a question. Prabhupada was shocked. Prabhupada told us this story, so I'm repeating how he revealed it to us. He was surprised. Why he's asking me to do such a thing? What do I say now? So Prabhupada's a very intelligent man, so he gathered himself and he replied, well, we are a nation under the British, we're not free. Let us go for home rule first, and then we can spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu around the world. So that was his suggestion, step by step. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is too important. It cannot wait for a political solution. It cannot wait for an economic solution. This is the greatest need for humanity at large. And he spoke and preached for 15, 20 minutes. And Prabhupada told us, he said, I was very happy to be defeated by my Guru Maharaj. And then later, Prabhupada took it as he ordered me. But it wasn't an order. It was just a suggestion. Now, I remember the time that Prabhupada was explaining there's 3 kinds of disciples. And I'm going to relate this to